Have you ever been completely blindsided by a staff member leaving you? Maybe they quit through text message. Maybe they just didn't even show up one day, or maybe you found out about it through, a post on social media, or you found out that all of your staff knew about it, but you didn't. At salon walkouts, whatever the case may be, it hurts. In today's episode, we're going to talk about creating a strategy that's actually a win-win for both the salon and the employees to try to avoid these terrible situations from happening. Really, really cool insight and opportunity here coming right up. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are talking about the dirty subject of staff turnover and the ugliness that sometimes happens. We know that our industry experiences a very, very high degree of turnover. People come, people go. Sometimes it's smooth. Sometimes it is anything but smooth. And it can be nasty, right? There can be a lot of emotions attached to it. Sarah is with me as always. Sarah, salon owner, service provider. You see, I'm sure, from many, many perspectives as a salon owner, the coming and going of staff. Have you... Tell us a story of maybe like a really, really bad staff quitting experience that you've experienced as an owner.
Well, so my sister and I opened our salon in 2014. So I've got, 11 years of, comings and goings and everything like that. And yeah, we've had some bad breakups. Unfortunately, I have found out, that somebody that I had created a really solid connection with, I found out she wasn't working at the salon anymore on Facebook through a post. We've had, legal issues come up after the fact, and he said, she says, and people not paying things back. And all of a sudden, people that sang your praises are now, you're the villain in their story. Right. So, and unfortunately, I take things very personally. This industry, again, we develop relationships with our guests and with our coworkers. And I very much look at my staff as, I don't want to say complete equals. Obviously, I've got more skin in the game than they do, and I have to do more things. But I'm again, I do kind of build these relationships with them, and I really love the culture and the team environment that we're able to kind of foster and create. But yeah, it kind of is a stab in the heart when somebody, bails, the same way that, some breakups are bad, and you would never think that, this person that you love can treat you like that after, kind of thing. So that's why we were like, let's teach our employees how to quit so that we can have a graceful goodbye. Because we've got protocols and processes for everything else in our business. And as much as I would love to say that, every single staff member that we have is a lifer, that's just unrealistic. Things change. So I feel like having a protocol in place, it kind of just helps to take some of the emotion out of it, right? Because again, it can hurt like a son of a bitch when somebody that you love and respect and have kind of developed this relationship with, when things get, kind of nasty and awkward. And it's always when emotions are involved, right? So yeah, this kind of takes that out of it.
And it's never easy. And we can relate to this in many instances in life. It's not just employees leaving. If you think of, it could be, it could be personal relationships. It could be, just with friends. Sometimes you have these, but obviously we're focusing here. Our industry is a very high turnover industry. And as much as we want to believe that all of our staff is going to love working with us and love working together in an environment, and we're working on creating a great culture, and we can't imagine that anyone would ever want to leave this amazing place. But it's a reality, and we just have to embrace that. And what Sarah just mentioned, I think if we can recognize that, right, embrace the turnover and approach it differently, and maybe have a strategy around it and a system around it, we can try to avoid or prevent some of these awkward goodbyes, some of these nastinesses. And often it comes down to fear.
Yeah.
Right? We're scared of many things. We're scared of hurting other people. So, we might, if we're the one leaving, I'm sure a lot of listeners out there are like, you know what, like I left once and I know it wasn't good, but, I just, like, maybe we didn't want to deal with the conflict, right? We were
Totally.
scared of hurting somebody's feelings. So we act a certain way, and it's all about a lack of communication at the end of the day, and we're like assuming what they're thinking and what they're feeling and how they're going to react, and we have all these stories that we're telling ourselves in our head that create the panic, create the stress, create this fear, right? So let's talk about how we can actually create a system that's going to make people feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think, Sarah, what you're going to share with us, what you've done, is actually creating an exit plan for your employees to know that if they do choose to leave, that's okay. And here's how we would like to kind of go through that process together. So why don't you start by sort of sharing us, I know you call this like your how to quit, protocol. Talk to us about just how you communicate, this to employees, and when you communicate this to employees.
So again, kind of seems counterproductive, but when we onboard, that's when we teach them how to quit. Because again, like I feel like it's just being realistic and looking at things, right? Like most people, circumstances change, things happen. Most people are not going to be with you for the next 50 years of their career, right? So we actually communicate it right from the hop, kind of thing. So again, this isn't like we're asking you to leave, but if things come up, this is how we can do it, and this is how we can do it gracefully, right? So I feel like again, everybody's is going to look a little bit different, and there's going to be, certain legalities and things based on where you live and based on past experiences and things like that, because it is tricky working in an industry where you do have so much access to client information. So that can make things a little bit difficult, kind of thing. So I like to kind of be like, this is what it would look like if you do quit. So it obviously has to start with like a formal resignation letter. That's how everything starts.
But before you go into what it actually looks like,
Yeah.
we're just starting about like the timing of it. I just want to jump in here because I mean, that could be pretty shocking for, a new employee coming in and having like their onboarding. They're all excited, my new job,
Yep.
new team. And, to be also as part of that onboarding, I'm sure there's like lots of wonderful things that they're introduced to, but they're also saying, you know what, we're also going to let you know like how to quit. And we have a protocol in place for, if ever this, doesn't work out for you, we want to, have a kind of a system or protocol in place to go about that. Could be a little bit shocking for people, but I think ultimately it really is incredible because nobody has ever done that, with me before, probably, right? If I've worked somewhere else before, and that just shows me that there's a spirit of open, honest communication here. And I think as part of your culture, that's the most important thing that you can establish with your staff is having an open, honest, communicative culture in a place where they feel like they can talk to you about things of any nature, including, this, difficult one, it's not going to be easy for anybody. So I applaud you for sort of setting that up at the beginning. And I think, people who might be scared, like, why would I introduce this at the beginning? Think of it as introducing a spirit of open and honest communication. And we recognize that all things are possible and we're free to that. And we just want to do it in the right way. So it's going to feel as comfortable as possible for you and as comfortable as possible for us so that we can have a proper transition, in place and make it a win-win for everybody. So, all right, tell us a little bit about what does this actually look like, this how to quit protocol in your salon company.
For sure. So, like you said, I do think it's really important to be super aware of how you are communicating it too, right? Like, you don't want to be like, and this is how you quit. Like, you definitely want to like preface it with, like, again, we've all had bad breakups, and that's the last thing that we want here, because we have a very, supportive, collaborative kind of culture here, kind of thing. So, this is why we're telling you how to do this so that you're comfortable with it and we're comfortable with it. So, first things first, like, again, everybody needs a formal resignation letter. That's definitely like the first thing that you would need. We also have monthly meetings, like individual meetings with all of our people, where we do say, like, is there any grievances you need to air? Is there anything you've been unhappy with? Is there anything you need to talk about, kind of thing? So again, that open communication is always a thing. We've actually had in the past people say, I think I'm going to open a salon from home. And we say, okay, so maybe for our next few meetings, until we figure out when you're leaving, we can talk about best business practices together and things that we've learned along the way and things like that. So again, when that communication is there isn't any of this weird like sneaking around people's backs, right? So again, the resignation. The other thing is to, and again, every individual salon is going to have to kind of establish this for themselves. It is, as I mentioned earlier, difficult in a client-based industry where you do have access to so much client information. It's difficult as an owner to decide if the best course of action is to allow them to work out that 2 weeks, or if it's to just, kind of cut ties there. Again, no bad blood or anything like that, but legally you have to protect your butt as a salon owner too. So just letting them know what that's going to look like as well. Or again, maybe there's limited access to things as soon as they put in this resignation, but they can still work out their 2 weeks a month, whatever it is, kind of thing. So again, every individual salon is definitely going to have to establish that for themselves. And again, at the end of the day, even though we are in the business of people, we still are in business, and you have to make sure that you're protecting your butt that way, because especially if you work at a salon that has, credit card information on hand and all of this sensitive information, like, you're the business, you're the one with the liability, right? So again, everybody's is going to look a little bit different in that respect. But so how we like to do it is, again, there's the resignation, and then there's an initial meeting where, because again, let's be realistic, we're all humans, right? So sometimes even if you have all of these processes in place, it still will catch you off guard, and you do need that moment of, you don't want to react emotionally, right? So I always like, in a perfect world, there would be a meeting where you have that conversation. I'm going to be leaving. Okay, great. Let's set up a meeting in the next 2 days where we can do an actual exit interview. And I do think, like, I sometimes will get a bit defensive about this, because I do feel like as a business owner, you are kind of placed on a pedestal, and how you react is judged so harshly. And again, at the end of the day, like I say, we're all humans. We all have feelings, and sometimes things do catch you off guard, and you do need a day or two just to like kind of sit on it, breathe it out, think about everything instead of reacting in that moment. So I feel like that's the number one thing, is when you do have that meeting, don't make any big decisions right that second. Schedule another meeting for another day or two or something like that, because again, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And there's been times where you're completely blindsided and somebody's like, well, I'm leaving, and you say, pack your shit and get out today, kind of thing. And that's not how we want this to go, right? So I feel like that's the number one thing, is, okay, that sounds good. How we're going to move forward with this is, we are going to set up a meeting today or tomorrow, kind of thing. Make sure that you have your formal resignation letter, yada, 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 right? And then when you come to that final meeting, you've already had a couple of days to kind of decompress, figure out the best plan of action. Again, that kind of comes back to that, like, are we going to work out the 2 weeks? Is it best that we part right away? And then to kind of conduct like an exit interview. So this is beneficial, and it can be a huge learning opportunity as a salon owner. And it also helps to just clarify things, because I think, again, in any breakup situation, the first thing you think of is like, what could I have done differently? Did I do you wrong in some way? And that might not be the case at all. It might just be that they are at a different stage in their life and they need a new opportunity. Or maybe it is something, maybe there is something with management or another team member or whatever it might be, right? So letting them know that we will be asking some question, we would absolutely appreciate your honesty with it, kind of thing, because it helps us be better business owners and create a better environment for other employees, and so that we can learn and be better in the future. So that's kind of your final step. But again, if there's anything I can say, it's make sure that when this happens, even though it might take everything in you, bite your tongue and give yourself a day or two to decompress before making those final decisions with the actual departure, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
if you've have an actual protocol that's written down, obviously not all employee, you know, exits are the same. Someone's leaving because they're, moving to a new city. Someone's leaving because they are deciding to, leave the industry. Some are leaving because they, decide they want to shift their hours and they want to work from by themselves, either in their own studio or from home or whatever the case may be. Someone else, there's all different scenarios, but if you have those kind of clearly written out in a protocol, then it helps you to reduce those emotions and just follow the protocol that you have established, for yourself as a salon owner, in terms of how to deal with it. And also that there's the expectation out there for the employee that they know how to deal with that situation as well. So I think if you have it clearly kind of like established and written out, it can help you to, just fall back to kind of what your process is, and not react, emotionally, in the moment.
For sure. And like I say, at onboarding, if you just are straight up with them and you say, if you are ever looking to resign, that is no problem. This is your point of contact. So, like for our salon, it might be like, you come to me, you ask to set up a meeting, or we already have, again, our monthly scheduled meetings kind of thing. And you come to that meeting with your formal resignation letter and just are aware that that will be a pretty short meeting and that there will be one scheduled very soon after, kind of thing. So, if they know that, they're not like, how am I going to do this? It's like, okay, right from the get-go, if I'm quitting, I have my formal resignation letter and I have my point of contact that I set up a meeting with.
Cool.
Right? So,
So
yeah,
how do you
yeah.
go about kind of establishing, a transition? Some you talked about, sometimes it might be up to 2 weeks, but sometimes it might be today, depending on the scenario. So how do you establish, again, have a system in place for a proper transition that makes it as smooth as possible for everyone?
And this is where it's really, really tricky. And I'm sure all other salon owners know this, because there's people that, have been ride or dies from the beginning and you trust them with your life, kind of thing. And you're like, I'm more than happy to allow you to work out your 2 weeks, kind of thing. And again, we'll just probably have to limit your, your,
Access.
access. Thank you. I was like, action? That's not it. Limit your access to certain things, again, just for like liability purposes, kind of thing. And then you might have somebody else that, like, again, you're always a bit shaky about it, kind of thing. And there is a lot of sensitive information, or how they came about it, or if there's been conflict leading up to it, kind of thing. It might be best to part that day. I know that, like, it's interesting because my dad was an insurance salesman. So we both have worked in commission based things, and he left a company that he was at for years and years and years. And they were wonderful. They absolutely loved each other. They had a great relationship. And he was like, but I knew when I put my resignation in that that would be my last day and that I would probably be walked out, not as a personal attack, but because, again, there is so much sensitive information. So that's why it's so difficult, because it is so it might just be easier for you to have a straight up protocol where it's just like, I'm sorry, like, that's your last day. Or again, if they do decide to work out the 2 weeks, kind of thing, it's like you don't have access to the computer, or you can only, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so case by case different. So I think that just establishing what's best, and again, it's still something that we're kind of ironing out the details of too, because again, we've had people work out the 2 weeks and it's been awkward for everybody. And we've had people work out the 2 weeks and it's been wonderful. And, there's farewell posts and congratulations on your new home and all of these kind of different things that would be like the ideal situation of how it would go down. But yeah, I do think, like, again, having and giving them the option as well, I think too, as long as they've earned it and kind of come about this in a correct way or whatever, because they might not want to work out the 2 weeks or they might want to work out a full month, right? So it is going to be so different case by case. But yeah, I think just having like, maybe two where it's like, where if they do stay, this is how it goes. Or if they don't stay, this is how it goes. Maybe having those two options kind of thing. And just, again, being super transparent with people about why you're doing it in that way.
Absolutely. It's critical. And again, I just come back to, change is inevitable in our industry. Staff turnover is inevitable. So rather than, putting our head in the sand and then being blindsided and feeling emotionally hurt and being reactive about it, we might as well be proactive and build out, an actual strategy, build out an actual protocol to be able to deal with it. And at least from a parameter standpoint, of course, as you've been mentioning, Sarah, like there's so many different scenarios and it's always going to be a little bit unique. But, if you've put together a few different common scenarios, it'll at least give you a guide to follow along the way to make sure that communication is as, open and transparent as possible, and that you have created that as safe of a space as possible for the employee to be able to come and communicate to you, that you have a clear sort of transition plan in place so that you're not caught off guard and just being reactive every single time. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I really believe that creating that culture of open, honest communication, the more that you're able to establish that, and it's not just a one-time thing in their onboarding, but it's an ongoing thing that you need to kind of be promoting, and that would come down to your one-on-one meetings. That would come down to team meetings, encouraging and fostering communication and sharing should make it that much smoother and comfortable for people to not have that fear, right? Because that's usually what holds us back. Not have that fear and be able to come openly, and then things happen a lot more smoothly going forward. So hopefully you're able to establish that, put in place some protocols for yourself to manage, make sure that's clearly communicated with your employees. I think it's really, really smart thing that you've done, Sarah. I look forward to hearing some of the results from it, and certainly we'll be able to maybe share that back in future episodes. If anyone has some additional insights or maybe just some crazy horror stories that they want to share, that we have some episodes called Salon Horror Stories, and we do like to hear some of the crazy stories that you do have, and we can all learn from them and then set ourselves up for success in the future to avoid those. Hope you took something out of today's episode, everyone, and go have yourselves an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional, and rate the show on Spotify or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.